Lux Lion is an online boutique that showcases gorgeous, handcrafted jewelry and accessories from highly skilled African designers. If you've been thinking about making a purchase from Lux Lion, there's no better time than now. I'm running a holiday special while supplies last. Use promo code THANKFUL30 for 30% off your purchase. Good morning and welcome to For the Love of Freedom. We are pre-recording this interview on Monday, December 8th, but it will be airing on Wednesday, December 10th at 10 a.m. Central on Voice of the People, USA TV and Radio Network, on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. Wherever you're watching or listening, please like it, share it, leave us comments, and ask us questions in the chat. A reminder that you can always catch us on the audio-only podcast platforms later in the day after the live interview airs. I am your host, Danielle Walker, and on this show, we meet people who have rejected the status quo, people who've broken with convention, have broken with the belief that the TV or the textbooks tell them the truth, and each of my guests in their own way are working to bring freedom to the world. Well, Dr. Rich Olree is joining me again today. Let me bring him forward. Hey, Dr. Rich.
Good morning, Danielle.
So Dr. Olree was my guest right about a month ago. And for those of you who did not catch that interview, I highly recommend you go back and watch it. It's episode number 26 of For the Love of Freedom on all the State of Freedom channels. And Dr. Olree is a chiropractor, an author, a mineral researcher, and an advocate for holistic health based in Hillman, Michigan. He is renowned for his pioneering work linking trace minerals to the human genetic code and arguing that mineral deficiencies lead to degenerative diseases while proper balance support health. And it is so good to have you back. And I am really excited about today's discussion, a little nervous because we will be reviewing the results from my hair tissue mineral analysis for the first time. And this was your idea, Dr. Olree, and I love it because it's going to help people understand what kind of information these tests give and how you put people back on the road to mineral balance and good health. Before we get into the big reveal of my test results, let me frame out the discussion with the scripture of the day. Let me grab my Bible here. It is appropriately for this month, Luke. It's Luke chapter 8, and it's verse 16, and it says, "No one lights a lamp and then hides it, covering it over or putting it where its light won't be seen. No, the lamp is placed on a lampstand so others are able to benefit from its brightness." And I felt like that was exactly what we're doing here today, Dr. Olree. You explained the basics of achieving essential mineral balance and restoring health in our previous conversation. So today I'm going to be vulnerable and we're going to put that on a lampstand so people can understand more fully what that means in practice, myself included. And sorry, go ahead.
Well, thank you and good morning. And energy equals mass times the speed of light. So actually everything we're looking at are fractions of light that our DNA encodes and builds proteins for our soul to be in a three-dimensional physical plane. So you're exactly accurate. If it doesn't happen in the soil, it can't be in the body. And really soil health equals human health. And the health of the plant is equal to the health of the human being. I was doing a comparison this morning on the transport system of a plant versus the fluids of the brain, and they're almost identical. I mean, it's like two different kingdoms doing the same thing. So if it's not in the soil, it can't be in the plant. If you don't eat the right plants, it can't be into your body. And these minerals are the life they're the life that gives the light the body needs.
Wow. Well, you are bringing it way deeper than I could, but I appreciate that so much. And you know, it's so interesting because you think about Jesus talks about, that his light shines through us. And it takes on such a different meaning when you think about all, him being the essential truth. So he is basically the universe perfected, and having that inside of you would mean that you could reflect that kind of light.
This is a biblical quote, all flesh is grass. So I like that too. So in Genesis, when God created all the stars generate all the minerals that the three-dimensional physical world we live in come from. And Earth happens to have all of these minerals in the right appropriation to propagate DNA-based life forms. And so each to his own kind is each different life form has a different genetic code that arranges these minerals in a slightly different pattern to give them the structure and the life functions that they appreciate through the hand of God.
Amazing. I think you might have cut out for a second.
The
Well, no, finish up. Sorry, there's just a little bit
no,
of a delay between us.
okay. All right, so your hair test, and obviously you've given me permission to talk about it because you hit the record button. When I look at a hair tissue mineral analysis, one needs to understand what exactly is a hair tissue mineral analysis. You could take hair from any part of the body and see what the mineral content is, but we choose to use the hair closest to the brain because the brain houses 44 minerals and the hair becomes an excretion point to rid yourself of toxic, noxious substances. So we take hair off the back of the head that's closest to the lymphatic system that represents the last 3 months of hair growth, showing what you've excreted in a 3-month period. So when I look at that hair test, the first thing I look at is the two elephants in the room is aluminum and barium. These seem to be falling from the sky in an unprecedented manner for over 30 years. And I look at your hair, and you're very high in aluminum, and you're very high in barium. And
Doc, do you want me to why don't I put those results up?
yep,
And
go ahead.
maybe before we get into it, I did want to let people know that I go back on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Rumble X. I read all of the comments and questions that people post, and people had a lot of questions after our last show. So maybe I pulled a couple of those, and if you don't mind, maybe we can look at those real quick and
Yeah, that'd be a
before we
good
get
start.
in. Okay, awesome. So I also just want to say that if this episode raises questions for anybody that's listening, please leave comments, and I will go back and we'll try and get them into the show the next time we have Dr. Olree on. The first question, Doc, was about the conversation we had last time on fluoride and toothpaste. They were asking, what do you recommend? Is nanohydroxyapatite a good alternative for fluoride-based toothpaste?
Well, my first comment is you have to go back in the day when fluoride first was added to toothpaste. The TV commercial says our toothpaste contains fluoride. Fluoride kills the bacteria that causes tooth decay. In other words, fluoride is an antibiotic. Now, your mouth has a biome, a microbiome, and it's fitting to start the digestive process. And if you put fluoride pasted with wax associated to it in your teeth, the fluoride is going to indiscriminately kill all kinds of bacteria and change the ratio of good bacteria in your mouth to probably one that's not so favorable to digest your food. And that will have a change from one end to the compost end, so to speak. We have all these different bacteria that all have a part in breaking down your food, generating the necessary proteins that circulate through the body to regenerate you. So if you have fluoride toothpaste, you may spit most of it out, but there's little tiny tubules in your mouth that seek out iodine and pull that iodine right out of the mouth into the thyroid. But it can't tell the difference between fluoride and iodine, so the fluoride gets pumped right into your thyroid. And then that causes your thyroid to lose iodine. That's not a good deal. Iodine's there to protect you from fluoride. So that's a real big deal. Now, there are many companies that make fluoride-free toothpaste, and you can buy fluoride-free dental floss. And we push the envelope. In northern Michigan, we have the Alpena Readiness Air Base, and they use these fluoride firefighting creams for the past 40 years. But they don't break down. And now there's a big, huge area around this airport that has these PFAS or fluoride-related firefighting retardants in them. And the people that have the wells, they tell them, do not brush your teeth with fluoride. Do not use Teflon-coated frying pans. You need to avoid the fluoride at all possible cost. So there's an awareness that goes multiple levels. And this PFAS can be found in multiple things. One thing that I've seen that caught my attention this past week, it says, is this cholesterol just a big myth? Is your cholesterol raising because you have a deficiency of a drug? or are we full of microplastics? And some of these
Yeah.
microplastics are PFAS related.
And that was actually a question I had for you. Is there a mineral that helps your body detox of some of these plastics? Because they say that we're consuming like a credit card's worth of plastic every, I don't know how often, maybe every year.
Well, they say there may be a credit card's worth of plastic in you. And I'm sure that varies from people that are holistic eating or junk food junkies that drink everything out of a styrofoam cup and tear everything out of a plastic contained food, throw it in the microwave with the plastic on it, and let these
Gosh.
chemicals saturate your food. The universal antidote for everything that you could possibly try to pull out of your body is the trace mineral boron and the trace mineral selenium.
All right. Awesome. And then there was another question that came from the chat that I wanted to pull up, which is can you supplement with selenium? And they didn't leave a lot of context, so I'm not sure if that was, if I guess that must have been just saying that there was a bad mineral in there, and because they asked also if you could do that in conjunction with detox enemas.
Okay, so first of all, there are multiple types of selenium that are actually presented to the American population. Now, I think 90 to 92% of all the multiple vitamins taken by Americans are coming from China. And China is using an extraction from the coal mines called sodium selenate. And when you look up sodium selenate in relation to type 2 diabetes, that form of selenium is responsible for increasing your chances of becoming type 2 diabetic by 40 to 45%. And the devil in the paperwork, or the fly in the ointment, is the body wants selenium so bad it doesn't know when it might encounter it again. It packs it into the pancreas. Waiting to convert it to the proper form of selenium that you need to take is called selenomethionine. Now, it doesn't matter what form of selenium your body encounters, it has to create it into the usable form, selenomethionine. And selenomethionine can be bought at all health food stores as a standalone supplement, and it's not really expensive at all. When I talk to people that are highly aware, highly intelligent, functioning good, and they're in their 90s, I ask them, do you eat one of three foods? Do you eat Brazil nuts often? Do you eat chicken gizzards or turkey gizzards often? Or do you eat sardines? Because these are some of the naturally highest sources. And these people in their 90s, they always go, yep, of course I do.
Wow, that's
Now, in
amazing.
terms of doing enemas to detox, some people think that we're putting coffee in the wrong end, because coffee is used to detox your liver, and selenium may be the greatest form of a liver detox. You have salmarian, which is an herb that's used to detoxify the liver, and the key mineral in salmarian is as a selenium. So when people get poisoned on certain things, you can put selenium in there and bind that poison up so that it doesn't constantly get recycled. This one example was a man was experimenting with mushrooms, and he got the wrong mushroom in his system, and he was sick as a dog for 3 days because it was going from his liver to his gallbladder to his intestines, and his intestines were reabsorbing it, putting it into the circulating
Oh,
system.
God.
And I put him on like 1,000 micrograms of selenium, and in 2 hours it bound it up. He had diarrhea, got rid of the poisons, and half a day he was normal again. So this is a
Wow.
real powerful mineral. And in case people don't know what salmarian is, that's milk thistle. And a lot of people
Okay.
use milk thistle to detoxify their liver. And that's a good thing.
So you could avoid having to do an enema, is what you're saying.
Well, back in the 70s, because that's showing my age, I was in college chiropractic college from 77 to 80. And we did a lot of enemas just because that was the fad at the time. Now, I see enemas are more effective if you're using the animal paste, ivermectin or fenbenzitol, and you're killing off parasites, and you want to speed up the excretion process. You may want to be doing enemas with that. But doing enemas by yourself, you usually don't get the fluid as high up the intestinal tract as, say, a colonic is. And colonics are hard and few to find between where I live. There's nobody in the area that does colonics, but colonics is much better form of trying to detoxify yourself of anything other than, say, an enema.
Okay. Well, good to know. All right. Well, I guess we can get into my results. I can go ahead and put them up on the screen and let you have at it.
Sure, thank you.
There we go.
You might have to blow it up a little bit. It's
Yeah,
pretty,
I think so.
if
I
you
thought it would
can.
be bigger.
Yeah.
I actually don't know that I can.
Okay. Um,
No, you know what? I think I can. Oh, no. It
well,
doesn't
while
look
you're
like it.
trying it, this chart is broken into 3 levels. The top level is toxic metals, and then the middle level is all the good minerals you need. And more towards the bottom, there's that stuff that's called potentially toxic or maybe generally not toxic. And on your hair test, the blaring 2 red lines, since might not be able to see it, is
Yeah.
high aluminum and high barium. And these are the first 2 minerals I look at when I do a hair test to see if people are properly processing what they're breathing in the current environment that we live in. And you're either exposed to more aluminum than barium than the next person. So if I would say to you, you got some pretty high aluminum levels. Have you been taking any vaccines? Have you had vaccines in your life?
So I used to travel to Africa for work, and they loaded me up with vaccines to go there. So I've taken a ton of them, not the COVID vaccine, but basically every other one.
Well, this is what Kennedy's trying to do, is to reduce the amount of aluminum in the vaccines. And if you caught wind this past couple days ago, they're basically
Mm-hmm.
knocking off the hepatitis B vaccine.
Praise
And
God for
when
that.
when Kennedy and Trump were on the same stage talking about the reduction, Kennedy was watching his language, but Trump is like going, "Yeah, look at all this aluminum. And I mean, this is a crime to put all this aluminum in there." Children
Yeah.
do not have a blood-brain barrier. That aluminum goes right in. It just goes right to the brain, and it's taking all the grease out of the skids. It's letting everything get tangled up, and it shorts the brain out. Something terrible. Now you have to have your rescue is actually boron. So if you're low boron and you put the aluminum in, you're going to even become more lower in the trace mineral boron. And what people most scientists don't even recognize, that the fluid in your brain called cerebral spinal fluid, boron is the second most abundant mineral in there, and it's to protect you from aluminum. Now, how does the aluminum, in a normal person? Well, Roundup is now potentially capable of loosening up your gut, giving you leaky gut so the aluminum will cross from your food. And they found out that the coating of your brain, the meninges, it relaxes and allows aluminum into the brain as fast as your gut lets it into the system. Once the aluminum goes into the brain, you have something called magnetic repulsion, where aluminum is pretty strong and it just forces the boron out of the brain. So the second thing I look at in a person that has high aluminum is, where's their boron levels? Well, you're on the low side of normal. So that's not a good thing. But there's only one thing that's worse, is if your boron levels were super high off the charts and you weren't taking boron, that meant your brain was being deprived so much of boron that it's going out of your system, letting aluminum run the roost. And well, they've linked a lot of this stuff to dementia and Alzheimer's.
Wow.
Now we look at barium as a toxic metal, and the body hates barium so much, your body will waste its selenium to make sure it gets bound up and gets out of you. And we look at your selenium levels. Again, you're at the bottom side of normal. So that means it may not be binding it up as fast as it's going in. And barium is a mineral that has a +2 electrical charge. So barium is a +2 and selenium is a -2. So selenium likes to marry this, so to speak, +2, -2 bind up at a 1 molecule by 1 molecule, and it gets rid of it. But if it stays in your system, it does, again, electromagnetic repulsion. And the 3 minerals that would be greatly affected would be calcium and magnesium. And you could look at that chart of yours and go, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm taking way too much. I guess I better cut back. Or I'm going, no, your body's losing way too much. And this is why we're seeing it in the hairs. The boron is forcing it out of the body. And this is some reasons, one of the critical reasons why people get osteopenia and osteoporosis, is from chronic boron toxicity. So if we see really high borons, we find various parts of the country, there's barium deposits in the ground. So we'll do a water analysis to make sure that they're not drinking it. Now, in
Wow.
northern Michigan, this is problematic because up here we got what you call a sleepy community, and people move, they have a cottage. And they show up and they open it up in May. They come up for Memorial Day, 4th of July, maybe a 2-week vacation, Labor Day, possibly hunting season. And they don't get too much of this because they're just getting, maybe 10 days worth out of 365. But when they move
Yeah.
here, they're bathing in it, they're cooking with it, they're showering in it. And a year or two after their retirement, they're wanting to know why they're aging so fast, why they're having strokes, why they're having heart attacks. And we run their hair, we find out that they're barium poisoned. And it
Wow.
causes blinding headaches and real bad memory problems. And so we do our best to keep people's knowledge of water conditions. And if we have to hunt for this down, we'll check water. When we find it, we have to get proper water filtration in so that you're not absorbing it through your intestinal tract anymore. And as much as it looks like you are, you have way too much calcium and magnesium, we'd have someone like yourself take 100 milligrams of magnesium with every meal, trying to bring back the calcium and magnesium that's being forced out of your body by these high barium
Wow. Well, I can tell you, Doc, I saw that level on there, the magnesium level, and I was like, well, I guess I should stop supplementing magnesium. I tried for 3 days. I could not sleep. My muscles were so tight. I was a disaster. I was like, well, forget it. I'm just going to take it till I talk to Doc and he tells me what to do.
Well, okay, so if there is one magic mineral on the table that tells your kidneys to recycle magnesium. And if you recycle magnesium, you're going to keep retaining calcium. And that's God's gift, boron. And your boron levels are very low and they're constantly being oppressed by high aluminum. So in this particular hair test, selenium and boron would be the mainstay of two minerals to put into you. So on the chart, I try to look for either toxicity or deficiencies. And you're borderline on quite a few of them between below normal and normal, which is actually better than a lot of hair tests. Then I want to know about mental health. Now, on the bottom right-hand side, it says lithium, and we would like you to have zero point 0.1 on the testing scale, and you're 0.023. So nobody likes to talk about lithium because words like postal and
Yeah.
it gets
Look,
a
I
bad
worked in a
connotation.
pharmacy. I worked in a hospital pharmacy back in the late 90s, and I know what, lithium is what we sent to the psych ward for sure.
Well, sure, but now 25, 30 years ago, I sat down with a Parkinson's researcher, a real fine lady who says, that's all I do. And we talked about minerals and said, what are you finding with lithium? And I says, about 1 in 20 are low. And she says, Parkinson's people, 50% don't have any visible lithium. Well,
Wow.
that was 30 years ago. Now we're looking at today's age, 1 in 20 people have normal lithium levels. And that spells out people that can't look at a glass of water as being half full, it's half empty.
Yeah.
And I'll look at, a husband wife's hair test and the wife is real low and he's normal. And I'll say, tell me, how's that glass of water looking? And does that wife think it's half full or half low? And I know the answer, and he don't want to have a problem when he gets off the phone with me. He goes, well, what that just means, yeah, problems. And I'll get a hair test back and be normal. So tell me, how's that glass of water? And you go, we're both drinking from it, and it's wonderful tasting. So, we know that lithium is a hard subject to broach. There is a doctor, I don't remember his name, a chiropractor. He's made it his life being is getting all the vets with PSPD, post-traumatic stress disorder. He says they're all low in lithium. And
Wow.
it's his desire to get as many post-traumatic stress veterans on lithium to pull them out of their current state of being, to get them into a state of well-being. So lithium is critical. And if I was to say to you, yeah, I'd probably use 10 milligrams of organic lithium. And you're probably saying to yourself, well, what does he mean by lithium? I worked in a store. We passed out 500 milligrams of potassium,
They were
potassium.
they were really big, big bills, I remember.
And you got to monitor the liver enzymes and everything because it's so hard on the body. But with the advent of Roundup being in the food chain, it's killed off some of the gut bacteria that make vitamin B13. Vitamin B13 is called orotic acid, and its job is to seek out lithium, marry it, and make lithium orotate. So when we prescribe people lithium, we're giving them lithium orotate that their body's not obtaining and generally absorbing it on its own. And when we see the levels come up, then we just back right off. And we've seen levels get too high. People don't seem to have a problem with too high a level when it's coming from an organic source versus the 500 or 1,000 milligrams that does so dang much liver damage. So
Okay.
that's a really good advent to add to people's regime when we see that low being low. So I went from aluminum and barium being toxic to being low on boron and selenium, which offsets those. We notice that your copper is really high as well. And copper and boron go hand in hand. And it's very possible that this high aluminum, low boron is letting the copper slip out of your body. And you don't want the copper to slip out of your body. Now, you're pretty holistic, so I doubt that you have a copper birth control implanted into you anywhere, which we have to keep our eyes out for that. But we like that copper zinc ratio to be pretty close to each other because the genes called superoxide dimutase number 1 is a heck of a workhorse. And if you have too much or too little copper or zinc, it doesn't work right. And that becomes quite problematic. Now, on that same chart at the bottom, it says significant ratios. Well, that's a
Yeah,
fine
let me
chart
see.
to
I'll put
look
it
at.
back up and maybe
Yeah,
we
put it
can
back up.
zoom it in later.
Yeah. Well, the point is I would just take it off the chart. When you have heavy metals, you've already got big imbalances, which is now causing a downhill effect of, a snowball turning into Frosty the Snowman tumbling at you because those two metals will goof up so many other metals and it throws all the ratios out. So if you try to correct all those ratios in one shot, that'd just be a dog chasing his tail trying to get the fleas off it. It's not going to work.
So you focus on the big ones first and then see how it.
I go for the detox and I put the critical minerals back in so that you do have the capacity to and when you do this, what's happening? Well, boron and selenium, they're like a probiotic and they're like an antibiotic. They kill off bad things and they promote the growth of good things. Boron is an absolute astringent. It used to be used as an eye wash when people actually wanted to use an eye wash. Selenium is so important to have in the body. It's that there's like 24 genes in the human brain that are selenium based, and heck, half of them they don't even know what's going on. But when you take a substance, if your brain's cooking real hard, you're generating hydrogen peroxide. That's H2O2. And when your body decompresses hydrogen dioxide to water and hydrogen, now you have a free oxygen molecule that goes around and oxidizes things. And selenium is the big mop that instantly protects your body from oxidation. And that's real critical. And with boron being the second most abundant mineral in the human brain, it's there to keep all these other minerals from tangling up with each other. It keeps them all separated. It keeps them from doing anything bad to you. I mean, let's say, example, if you have lead in the liver, it's going to, or your bones, it's going to mess things up. But if it's in the brain, boron is keeping it quiet. It's keeping it at a standstill so that your body can excrete it out the hair and get it out of harm's way.
Now, if I started taking your Grand Unified Mineral Complex shortly after our very first conversation, is that going to be enough to get the job done, or do we need a supplement and then ultimately we'll end up back there?
Well, I mean, supplementation is second to eating. I mean, but the devil in the paperwork is that anything in the United States east of the Mississippi doesn't have any selenium, and everything west of the Mississippi has selenium, but it's not in a form that the human body can handle. God has a funny sense of humor. Selenium comes at us in different forms in terms of electricity. It comes at us at a -2, which is part of selenomethionine, but it comes at us as a +2, +4, and +6. So we can see somebody's selenium levels being really high. We're like going, oh my God, this guy's selenium poisoning, only to find out he's using the hair shampoo Celsum Blue. the SEL in Selsun Blue is selenium, and indeed it's the wrong kind of selenium. And yeah, your body will suck this selenium in, and it'll trigger to problems having the ability to process it. So
Wow.
what we need is something called selenomethionine. Well, okay, let's say we got the selenium in the pancreas waiting to be converted to selenomethionine, but if we have a lot of inflammation in the body and our homocysteine levels are elevated, well, all your methionine is bound up and you don't even have any usable methionine to create selenomethionine. And this is happening more and more in today's age. Because of the COVID environment, fertility is down almost 70% worldwide. And if you just look at the anatomy of a male sperm cell, the tail is knocking on the door to the egg, and the egg says, okay, show me your selenoprotein. And it shows it and opens the egg up a little bit and it says, okay, boy, let me see your strength, because the tail on the sperm is a selenium motor. And if there's not enough selenium to push its way through the front door, then there's not enough selenium for life. That's just the way it works. And
Wow.
selenium levels have been tanking out for quite a long time. The COVID virus is dramatically decreasing the selenium in people, and it's become a worldwide problem with the population on decline now.
When you are detoxing from some of these heavy metals, what can you kind of expect to feel? Like I was on a heavy metal detox earlier this year for a couple months, and I just tasted metallic for like 6 weeks straight.
Well, I think you were just moving the metals around. You were doing detox, but you didn't have you had the mop, but you didn't have the handle. Selenium is the mop handle that tells it in what direction and how to bind things up. And you can't in the American diet. Uh, you really can't find a lot of selenium. I mean, if somebody gives you a loaf of bread, you can say, I only eat the crust, and well, you'll get more selenium than the rest of the bread because that's where the selenium is found in the bread, but unless it's grown in adequate soil. Um, this is why I always say if it's not organic, panic, because there's far more consciousness to the mineral content of the soil for the products that we end up eating, which is critical.
Yeah. It is critical. And we had a gentleman on who I connected you with on our other show, Steve Jarvis, and he was saying because of what they're doing in the skies, there's no such thing as organic anymore, but there still are degrees of horrificness, I guess you could say, or that what's happening to the soil would be worse if you're actively putting something, Roundup in the soil, or the what is the name of the thing that's come since Roundup now? They have
Oh,
two
well,
herbicides
yeah,
that
I don't
that are
know the
even
name of it, but
worse.
it can't be any better. If anything, it's maybe worse. But going back to the organic farm, these farmers, they do a soil test, and if it's high in aluminum, they first thing they look at is the boron levels. Now, boron's not like aluminum. Aluminum has always been the third or fourth most abundant mineral in the crust of the soil. The problem is, it's when it becomes a liquid that it can get into plants and goof things up in the worst way. And your only defense is boron. So farmers, the organic farmers, they're buying boron every 5 years. They're making sure they have optimal boron levels. And if you have the optimal boron levels, then aluminum is not the issue anymore. So if you have, 30, 40 organic dairy cows, they're feeding them kelp. They're getting lots of iodine, all the trace minerals in kelp. They're giving them extra selenium because the extra selenium allows for the proper reproductive process, and it gives you a 10 to 20% increase in yield from the cows. And then you got the skidster that cleans out the barn and puts it on the truck, and it gets spread all over the fields. So these fields are protected as best you can protect yourself. Now, the only thing
Okay.
you can't protect yourself is the wind. So if you have an organic farm and your neighbor is out there, spraying Roundup all over everything, Roundup can actually drift in the air for 3 miles. And so people say, well, is organic, is it any better? I'm like, well, wait a second. They're applying it to your food. Mine were not. And if it's
Yeah.
there, it's which way is the wind blowing the day, that they applied it to the fields that are growing. So that's all hit and miss. And you would really like to think that you're doing the best you can when you support the organic farmers so that we can create that market to become as profitable as a person needs to be and give the rest of us the byproducts of their fruits, labor, and intelligence.
Yeah. Now, you have been doing hair tissue mineral analysis for a while.
About 30
I don't know how
years.
many.
Yeah, about
Okay,
30
so
years
what
now.
are some of the trends you've seen? You touched on the fact that that people's lithium has gone through the floor. Are there some other trends you've seen?
Yep. Two, poisoning and starvation.
Hmm.
I mean, you have a better looking hair test, and I'm sure you'll post the hair test so that people can see it later on. But most of your minerals, the good ones, are right at the below normal stage. Some of them are in the below normal. Otherwise, they're all on the low normal stage, except for a few which have gone through the roof because they're being pushed out. I see people that hardly register any minerals, and when you look at the toxic minerals, they don't have any. And they go, well, look, I'm not full of heavy metals. And I'm like, you don't have enough good minerals to even push the bad minerals out. This is far worse than I thought. So when you start looking at multiple mineral deficiencies, you don't say, here, take 25 pills and let's see what happens. What phase of digestion has failed? Is it the thought process of buying the food? Because you're just buying conventional food because it's cheaper, it's easier, it's processed? Or is there some part of your intestinal tract that's lacking? Is your saliva off? You have chronic sinus problems making the microbiome bad. You stress beyond belief and you no longer make enough hydrochloric acid. Maybe your gallbladder's missing and now you're not making the right secretions from gallbladder that ties into the release of pancreas. And if you have any of these organs that are subpar, you're not getting saliva digest your sugars. Maybe you're eating your food too fast. You're not making enough saliva, and the sugar is not being processed in your stomach. It's going into your intestinal tract, and it's making the wrong bacteria grow. Or maybe your pancreas isn't producing, and you're not breaking your protein down. If the gallbladder's involved, is to take water and oil and mix it. It emulsifies it so that you can absorb all your oil soluble vitamins A, D, E, K, etc., etc. So that's really critical, is to maintain the proper organ function so that once these bacteria get into your intestinal tract, they'll generate all the necessary vitamins for absorption. And without the necessary bacteria making for vitamins, you can't absorb minerals. And it just becomes a fighting battle. And then your DNA tries to compensate, and you end up burning out your DNA at an accelerated rate. And this is called accelerated aging.
Wow. Now, you mentioned chronic sinus problems or like a chronic sinus infections, maybe. I live in South Louisiana. You know, we're in one of the wettest parts of the country. What would you say to people who are experiencing chronic sinus infections?
Well, okay, so your nose is creating mucus so that you don't absorb something. Now, the COVID virus took full advantage of people that have a sinus, period. The microbiome from the COVID virus altered to become fungal in nature. The virus regressed into the olfactory nerve, into the brain, where it houses itself between the brain and the meninges. That's a whole conversation in itself. Now, a lot of people say if your sinuses aren't working right, get a chiropractor to loosen up your neck. Maybe the on switch to create mucus is on, and you get your neck treated, and you can calm stuff down. As a chiropractor for 45 years, I've had people coming in that were just losing their minds. Their sinuses were so bad, and you treat their neck, and on the way home, it all breaks free. They got caca coming out of their nose like you wouldn't believe. They got blood, all kinds of stuff can come out of there. And then if you're inhaling that and it's breathing, it's going right to your lungs, and it keeps the lungs on a state of edge. And when your lungs get a little bit backed up, the heart goes, man, you're really making it hard for me to get the blood to get oxygenated. And it stresses the whole system. It goes from the sinuses to the lungs. And then if you're swallowing this stuff, if you don't have adequate stomach acid, it slips past the stomach. And we just got a big vicious cycle going where these little critters have figured out whether it's viral or bacterial. If it's bacterial, if it's yellow, you have a staph problem. If it's green, you have a strep problem. If it's brown, you have both of them growing. If it's clear, you probably have a virus of some kind that's having its way with you. And that's when, you know, selenium and boron and zinc and vitamin C and elderberry juice. And we actually will take the global healing boron and put a little bit up the nose to try to get a direct application of this antifungal material to work better. Um, you know, as a dad growing children, tea tree was something that we bathed them in when they started to have a problem because it's antifungal, antiviral.
I'm taking notes.
You can go back and listen.
I know, I can. Now, tell me, Doc, where does blood work fit in with all that you do? Because, if I go to my functional doctor, I actually have some blood work orders here on my desk, and they probably want like 60 different panels run. How does what you're doing fit in with that? Or,
Well,
you
okay, so
know,
blood work is great when you have acute stuff going on and you want to see what the current trigger is, and you're looking at IgGs, you're looking at all different panels. I would say when it comes to minerals, the mineral magnesium, if 99% of the magnesium is found inside the cell and you do a blood test, you're only checking for what's in the blood. You're only checking for 1% of the content. So people say, well, I had my lead levels checked, my hair showed high. Well, okay, that makes sense to me because the body hates lead so much. You get a bad exposure to it, it's going to immediately put it in the bone. It don't want it messing stuff up, so it puts it into the bone. And then later in life, when you go into a state of malnutrition, it slowly releases it back into the system. And when you're in your 40s and your 50s and you wonder why you picked up a non-Parkinson's shake in your hands and stuff, because the stuff's coming out of your bones. And this is happening more and more because COVID is causing an extreme amount of osteopenia and osteoporosis, and whatever your body has stored in the bones to prevent it from interfering with liver or spleen or kidney function or wherever you want to look for the problem to end up. So blood work is great at assessing a current status. It doesn't give you the implications of a 3-month secretion. Now, if I'm diabetic and my little whistle goes off and my phone says my blood sugar is 200, were you going to do something, take insulin or something and bring it right down? Well, but to me, that's what blood fluctuates up and down and up and down and up and down. And it's not giving you a constant exposure excretion pattern.
okay. Now, what you were talking about, is that considered essential tremors?
Yeah,
What
essential
people are
tremors.
getting?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, is that something that you could reverse with supplementation of boron and selenium, getting that stuff pulled out?
Well, I would like to think that that's a great part of it. I took every brain disease known to man and I went into publicmedicine.gov and I typed in, when I got this list of disease. So my first question is, there's a gene, there's 20,000 genes, one gene called IL-6, interleukin 6, and it's a marker for inflammation. It's the primary marker of inflammation for COVID, as well as many other diseases. So I typed in IL-6, and every disease has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles linking IL-6. Well, I've linked IL-6 to the mineral boron, and boron is found in curcumin. So then I typed in all these diseases in curcumin, and again, there's hundreds and hundreds of articles that relate these different disease processes, and then the cure being somewhat of a curcumin-based reasoning. And what they found is curcumin houses 3 or 4 different types of boron, which is why turmeric, which becomes curcumin, has been used for 5,000 or 6,000 years in human ailments. So I did the same thing to selenium. And again, every human disease, you can link it back to some form of selenium issue, mostly deficiencies. And the gene associated with selenium is interleukin 10, IL-10. And there were scads, articles up the yin-yang on every disease to that. So if you know what selenium likes to buddy up with to detoxify the human body, it's called glutathione. And God gave us 24 glutathione genes. And the COVID virus markedly knocked down 8 or more of the selenoproteins, the ones critical for all these brain diseases. So I've seen how the COVID-19 in relation to boron and selenium could affect every known brain disease there is. and take something that you don't even know you got to something that now you know you got, or at least you don't think you got, but everybody else knows it because of personality changes and the way your body
Hmm.
functions. So again, going back to the big detox question is, most 2 out of 3 people walking the face of the earth are selenium deficient. This is statistics. And selenium is critical for the guarding of the genetic code. In genetics, P53, that's the name of a gene, P53, is the guardian of the genetic code and is 100% selenium dependent. And if 2 out of 3 people walking the face of the earth are selenium dependent, and you throw in all the current geopolitical geochemicals that we have, we can see why cancer and turbo cancer has gone off to on a rocket to the moon or Mars.
Unbelievable. So, what percentage of health issues do you think we're seeing that would find their start with a mineral imbalance?
All of,
All of them, because
I
they
mean,
would protect your
okay, so
body from.
let's say you're an Amish man, and you and your wife have delivered a baby that has one of the 246 genetic abnormalities. People say, "What can you do?" I said, "I can't do anything to change the DNA of that child. I can only help you get epigenetics. But if you're missing that gene, I can't give you even an epigenetic to help you get a little bit better. I can't reverse engineer people's DNA." And so that becomes problematic. Now, the COVID shots, there's something that they had called reverse transcriptase where they actually did genetically modify people. I don't know how to ungenetically modify them. We don't know of any process yet. Let's say once the spike protein infused into your chromosomes in the liver, which is scientific research, how to undo it. So that poses another problem for the poor people that took the COVID shots, thinking that something good was going to happen from taking the shots. But going back to epigenetics, I mean, we have all these genes. People don't really have gene problems. They might have a weak gene. Let's say you're white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Caucasian. You can go in the sun at noon in the summer, and you can make enough vitamin D in 30 minutes to go 30 days. But if you have dark skin and your heritage is from Africa or somewhere on the equator, your genes are different. You got to be in the sun for 6 hours to make the same amount of vitamin D. So there's variation in these genetic patterns uh, throughout the human race. So there's no one size that fits all, but you can do testing, like you said, the blood test. Right now, people are coming in and they're showing signs of vitamin D deficiency, and they go, "Well, why would I be vitamin D?" So we haven't seen the sun since maybe mid-September. Here it is, December. And I said, you can always tell when people are going low on vitamin D. Just turn the boob tube on and see how they're advertising all the cold remedies, because
Yeah.
people's viruses are kicking in and they're trying to sell you stuff to minimize the symptoms of a vitamin D deficiency from all practical purposes. And when it comes to the dreaded diseases, you start talking lung and liver stuff like that. I'm like, where's your vitamin D levels? And like, well, I don't know. I mean, why would I care? It's like, well, see, that's the number one reason that you're going to have so many dysfunctions is that you're not making you're not making these vitamins from the sun anymore, and how it affects your ability to generate tumor suppressing genes. It keeps them asleep, and your body can't mount a defense. I think I answered your question.
Yeah, I think so. If we're looking at this high levels of aluminum and barium in my hair test, and we get if we supplement with boron and selenium, would that also? I mean, it sounds like the detox kind of clears out the problem all over the body, and you would expect that the
Well,
liver would be functioning better as well.
let's just pick out aluminum. Dr. Henry Eli from Healing for the Ages has been using the global healing boron. And he was going outside on a heavy chemtrail day, and he was checking his urine, and he was finding 200 units of aluminum in his cup after it was analyzed. And he started taking the liquid boron. And then he was testing his urinary output on a chemtrail day. It went from 200 to 600. So this global healing boron, but his further research indicated you've got to take it on an empty stomach for it to work. So then another mineral helps get rid of aluminum, and that's called magnesium malate. Magnesium malate is good for helping to detox the aluminum through the kidneys. And then the greens, microgreens, called cilantro. Cilantro looks like parsley, but it doesn't taste like parsley. It's a little bit more bitter, and that's the great aluminum detoxifier. I
Is
believe
it?
it was Dr. Umara wanted to know why in Vietnam they had the lowest Alzheimer's rates. And when he got into their diet and started checking their urine, after a meal, they were excreting 600 milligrams of aluminum. And his research showed it was cilantro. They use a lot of cilantro. Now, if you live in India, where the Alzheimer's rate is less than 3% of the one of the largest populations in the world, instead of using salt and pepper like the United States does, they use turmeric on everything, and turmeric has all this boron in it. So that's like a 1-2 punch. Is to use the turmeric, the curcumin, the cilantro, the magnesium malate, and the liquid boron.
Awesome.
And
Okay.
just the past couple of days, I was toying around with our artificial intelligence, and I said, based on the paradigm I've given you, and I give it a lot of my data so that it would get an idea to mimic what I'm thinking. I said, show me the difference between the fluid of a plant that goes from the roots to the leaves and cerebral spinal fluid, and everything came back identical. It says one source, two kingdoms. And I thought that
Whoa.
was pretty good because if the plant is not growing in the right microbiome, it's going to be sick. If we eat the sick plants, then our cerebral spinal fluid will mimic what we're eating.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
kind of
amazing.
startling too.
Yeah, definitely. Um, what are some environmental issues you maybe are caution people about or check into when you see people's results? Environmental issues like in people's homes that may be driving or contributing to mineral imbalances.
Water.
Water is the main
We got
one.
a river going through us. Virtually, I mean, you drink water every day. That basically creates a trickle stream. I know when I go in the bathroom, I tinkle the um, there's so much to water. Where's good water these days? You're going to buy something that's in a store in a piece of plastic. Well, we got the mineral antimony that leaks out of that. We've got the phthalates. We've got the biz A, the biz B, the hormone disruptors that's coming from bottled water. And people say, well, it's better than my drinking water at home. It's like, okay, I have people say, my water. I had a lady, she was a naturopathic student, and both of her children were extremely mentally retarded, and her husband was a plumber. So we did hair tests on the two children, and the lead was off the charts. They
Wow.
grew these children up in a house that had lead in it. So we tested the water, and where was the water? It had lead in it. So her husband's a plumber, and he says, well, our water tastes good. And I says, yeah, but lead tastes good to children. And I says, this could be one of the reasons that you're in your current environment with children that have been damaged, permanently damaged, possibly reversible. And he did something nobody else did. He just called up his buddy, he pounded the well deeper, checked it, no lead, end of the story. But when you find it in water, you have to take your test results to a Culligan or a Kankago, or I can't think of the name, but you got to get a quality water testing people who say, we have the filtration for this. And just don't believe them, because after you get the filtration done, check it again.
Yeah.
Because a water softener is only going to pull iron out of it, maybe a little bit more of this or that, but it really doesn't address all the trace minerals. So you have to know what you're trying to filter before you buy a filtration system. And that becomes problematic because you're going to spend a lot of money to get systems in, and you're going to be changing filters. When I do hair tests and I see really high aluminum, I'll say, hi, Danielle, what city do you live in? And you would respond
Mm-hmm.
by telling
Berg.
me, what's that?
Yeah. Berg is the name
Okay,
of my
so
town.
I would be going city or township of Berg, water quality report while we're chit chatting, I will be looking at what that city claims to have in their water to see if the water matches anything on the hair test. So
Okay.
if you had a lot of aluminum added to your drinking water or it was there, I could say, well, the aluminum poisoning is not as bad as we think it is because you're showering in it and it's just bouncing off your skin. But then again, it is a warm shower, so you could be inhaling a little bit. But the worst possible scenario is drinking the stuff. Now, a big issue everywhere in the East Coast, down to the Mason-Dixie line, east of the Mississippi, is arsenic. I see arsenic toxicity all the time. I see barium pockets. I see uranium. And of course, most city water, they add aluminum and fluoride to it. They add aluminum so the water sparkles, and they add fluoride because they want to doctor your children's teeth. Of course, it runs all the lithium out of their brains, making them not as smart as their potential. And that's been the big rub with the fluoridation is it changes the microbiome of children to not absorb minerals. So they're hence growing up mineralless, and we don't understand why their cerebral cortex doesn't function as well as other children.
Wow. And I may have mentioned this to you before, but we have in Louisiana, fluoride is mandated to be put in the water. And so we've been working to get it pulled out for them to change those recommendations to zero them out. We had there, my state senator brought a bill last legislative session, and it was defeated by the dentists who came in and said all the poor kids are going to have a mouthful of cavities if you take the fluoride out.
Okay, so when did the government become doctors?
Right.
If the dentist wants to prescribe fluoride, they make fluoride toothpaste and all the dental floss because the FL in floss stands for fluoride. Now, if you don't want to change your diet and you want your children living on sugar and a bad gut and their teeth fall out because they're vitamin D deficient and boron deficient and calcium deficient, why should the government be responsible for mandating a mineral in the water supply that's known and proven to lower the IQ of children? Now, I got the city close to me. I just walked in there and says, I've written 8 books on minerals, and the only time you find fluoride is how bad it is. And I put together 100 articles, 100 summaries on 100 pages on how it lowers the IQ of children. It says, now, when did we give you the right to be doctors to predicate what our children are forced to drink? Well, they tabled it. Now, we didn't have any dentists show up to these meetings, but they sent their lovely, their lovely
lobbyists.
Clean your teeth and, tend to you. They just sent them in there and they read this pre-thing, oh, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah. I'll see you later. My boss says hi,
Exactly.
And at this point in time, it was during the COVID lockdown, and they had something called supply-demand issues. And they couldn't get the fluoride. And they looked at a new system. It was going to cost $55,000 to put a new system in, and the person handling the fluoride had to have a hazmat suit. So the last meeting I went there, and I said, you're going to spend $55,000. I says, I tried to find a hazmat suit in our county. We don't even have one. I was going to wear it in here so you can see what a person has to wear to add something to our drinking water. I said, it's going to cost you $7,000 more to put a suit on to put this wonderful stuff into the drinking water. And they tabled it for 2 months. There wasn't any backlash. They go, we're not doctors. We're not advocates.
Well, that's amazing. I would love it if you could send me your list of whatever the packet that you gave them. I'd love to load up my legislators. I've got it
sitting right in the computer. I can send it to you. I had little booklets made up. I give everybody that was on the board. The only one that disagreed with me is the one council member who was Zooming in at her house and she had a mask on.
Of course.
Okay.
Well, she couldn't agree with you because there wasn't enough oxygen going to her brain. Awesome. Well, Dr. Olree, thank you so much for taking some time with me today. Thank you for going over my results. I'm glad that they were not as horrifying or I didn't know what to expect. So I'm very happy that there's a good path forward, and I'll be talking to you more about that. Anything else you wanted to share before we let you go today?
Yeah, if it's not organic, panic, don't eat it.
Yeah.
It's the best chance you have of getting the maximum expression out of your God-given DNA code. And when you get the right minerals in, what you get is called healthy epigenetics, meaning these genes are being fed properly. And when the farmers put the minerals on the soil, they're looking for the best genetic expression. So they have the highest sugar content called bricks, and the pesticides, the bugs, and everything that like to eat plants. They can't even see the plant. So it makes for a nice, healthy plant. And since plants have such a similar to the human beings in terms of flow of fluids, our fluid in our brain regenerates every 8 hours. And a plant, it goes up and down that tube every 12 hours. The elevator goes up in the morning and it comes down at night. Thank you for having me, Danielle. It was a pleasure.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Dr. Olree. We will be seeing you soon, hopefully in a couple weeks.
Okie dokie. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. The secret to losing weight 2 times faster has gone viral. See the transformations hundreds of thousands of men, women, and teens are experiencing around the world with the Slender Eyes drops. These homeopathic hormone-balancing drops are proven to control appetite, support thyroid function, improve energy, boost mood, and increase metabolic rate. To learn more about the drops or other incredible natural wellness and lifestyle products, email me at danielle@freedomstate.us or visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. Meet the world's first living, full-spectrum, certified organic CBDA hemp extract. Ness's hemp oil was extracted from seed to bottle without chemicals, solvents, or heavy metals, and it surpasses world-class standards for purity. This pure and powerful CBDA has been proven to reduce aches and pains, ease mental tension, and promote better sleep. To get yours today, visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. Thanks for joining me today on For the Love of Freedom. It is an honor and a true privilege to get to spend some time with you. If you're looking for other episodes of this show, you can find them on all of the State of Freedom platforms. And a reminder that this show is live on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Central. God bless.